Hello, 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 everybody. I'm super excited that you guys are here. So, welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Tonight, we are going to be diving into everything dealing with a trust, you guys. So, we are going to be talking about how to set up a trust, the different contributors involved in a trust, what a trust is, how to save taxes using a trust, and how to build wealth and preserve wealth using a trust. So we have a lot to cover. So let's see who we have in the house. If you guys could come on camera, I would really, really, really appreciate that. So I see we have India, we have Tracy, we have Aswan, we have Shaya, Chloe, we have Chris, we have Dave, Earl, we have iPhone in the house. We have Javier. We have Josh. We have Jacoya, Cam, Logan. We have Minister Angelique, Nicole, Nicolette. We have Tony, Vanessa, Delonte, TY, Ty. All right, perfect, perfect. So we are about to get started here. Let's see. All right. So let me know in the chat, where are you guys tuning in from? Where are you guys tuning in from? I don't know. I know Chris is in Florida. Who else? Where are you guys at? So let me know. And I see. Hi, Kim. How are you? Hi, Aswan. Okay, look it up. Oh, hey, Earl, Josh. All right, everybody put their camera on. I love it. I love it. I see you guys. I see you. Okay, love it, love it, love it. So we're gonna get started. Let me just pull up this slide here. I got a short presentation for you guys. So this is gonna be a 90-minute webinar. Maryland. Okay. We got Pittsburgh, Philly, Cali, Cleveland, Houston. All right. PA, Greensville, Greenville, Colorado. Okay, Colorado. Nice. Jersey City. Okay, Jersey City. We got Georgia in the house. We got St. Louis. Kim, you all the way in St. Louis? Javier said he's in Miami. Okay. We got Greensboro. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Comment. Hmm. All right. So let me pull up this presentation here. So anybody put a one in the chat if you guys have a trust. Anybody have a trust? I need to fill out the room, see who we got in here. We got 27 people so far. All right. There's a couple people from Philly. What's going on over here in Philly? Okay. Put a one in the chat if anybody in the room has a trust. Angelique, you have a trust, right? Ohio's in the house. Okay. Okay, Poonie got a trust. Kim said not yet. Let's go, Kim. I know you're getting a trust. Not yet. Anybody else have a trust? Okay, all right. Well, anyways, let's dive in. So, you guys, I'm Christina Yvette. If you guys don't already know who I am, so thank you for joining me tonight. I have a very informative webinar. I'm going to be teaching you guys a lot about trust so that you can actually make an informed decision and see if this is the type of entity for you. Okay, because I know that you are building generational wealth and you need to know how to protect that wealth and actually have that wealth last generations, right? Why are we talking about generational wealth if it's not going to last generations, right? We're talking 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 generations. So that's why you need a trust within your structure. So we're going to talk about that, okay? I have been a trustee, you guys, since 2015. 2015, I was 25 years old. I bought my first property, and it was by way of mentorship. I started flipping houses, got a mentor who was in real estate. My mentor at that time told me, you need to put your property into a trust. And I was young, 25, didn't want to be taken advantage of. The house that I bought was terrible. So I was flipping it. It was going to be renovated, right? So this particular house, it needed to go under construction. And the subcontractors, they could have got injured. Somebody could have stepped on a nail. The roof could have caved in. Anything could have happened. And then guess what? That's a lawsuit. Then they would have came after me, right? Or that they could have took the house away. So that's why I end up putting that property in a trust, and I've been operating as a trustee ever since, you guys. It's like the best thing ever. So that's why I'm going to be teaching you guys, because I've been doing this for a while now. So let me jump into this presentation here. Let's see. There we go. All right. And I was actually a registered nurse, you guys. So that was me. But now let's talk about the trust, right? So what is a trust entity? I know you guys have heard the term trust, right? What is a trust entity? So it obviously is an entity, but it is a contract, you guys. It is a contract between certain different parties. You got several different parties involved. So we're going to talk about those parties in just a minute. Now, with this contract, it's a private contract, so you actually get to operate privately out here, out here in society, which is a good thing. So that means you don't have to use your name, your social, you can use the trust, and you can use the EIN from the trust, okay? So there are several different parts to this contract. The first part is the declaration. So the declaration is where you're declaring what it is and what it is not. So you are declaring that it is a private contract and what type of trust it is. So let's just say it's a irrevocable trust. And then you're declaring what it is not. So you're declaring that it is not a LLC, it is not a corporation, or it is not, anything else, okay? So that's one part of the contract. The other part of the contract is the actual agreement, which we call an indenture, okay? So when you are talking about trust or when you are doing your research related to trust, you're going to hear that term, okay? And that just means agreement, and the indenture actually has all the rules and regulations of how the trust needs to be operated, okay? So it's kind of similar to an operating agreement when you're talking about an LLC, okay? So now let's talk about the different parties involved when we're talking about the trust. So the first party is the grantor. That is the creator of the trust, you guys, okay? Another name for grantor is trustor or settler. You're going to hear those terms when you're doing your due diligence, okay? So that is the person who's actually establishing the trust, and they're establishing it for the benefit of somebody else, which is the beneficiary, okay? So the grantor is usually the person who's going to fund the trust or put some type of property into the trust, okay? The next party is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust. So that is the individual who is actually going to be controlling the assets and operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? So they have all the power and all the control when we are talking about this trust. They are what we call the authorized representative, because the trust, right, is a living, breathing entity. It's seen just like you. You are a living, breathing entity. The trust is a living, breathing entity. So anything and everything that you can do as a person, the trust can also do. So if you could buy a house, a trust could buy a house, okay? So just know that. So because the trust is a living, breathing entity, it needs actually someone to represent it, and that's the trustee, okay? So if you are going to choose a position within the trust, you want to choose to be the trustee. The other party is the beneficiary, okay? So that's the inheritor of the trust. So that is the individual who has all the power. The individual who actually receives all of the assets inside of the trust, okay? So once the trust is terminated, or it expires, then someone needs to receive the assets that are inside because the trust is, is no longer in existence, okay? But the whole point is for you to keep extending that trust so that it lasts the generations. So if you're setting up a trust today, you're going to set it up for 100 years. And at that 100-year mark, whoever the trustee is, you want that person to make sure that they are renewing the trust for an additional 100 years. So now your estate, your legacy is going to last 200 years, or 6 or 7 generations, okay? So that is the goal. So now there's several different types of trust. You see some here on the screen, right? Irrevocable, land, living, revocable, charitable. There's a bunch of different types of trust, and we're going to talk about some of those categories. So let's take it from the top. The first category is express versus implied, which means that an express trust is a written trust. It's in contract form, and it's, black and white on paper. An implied trust sounds the way it is, right? Meaning that it's oral and that you're pretty much implying what the person wants, okay? So it's an oral agreement between the grantor and the trustee, okay? Next, you have simple versus complex. So a simple trust is shorter in nature, and the trustee is forced or required to give distributions to the beneficiaries. On the other side, you have a complex trust, which is longer in nature. You have more rules, regulations, and the trustee is not forced to give distributions to the beneficiaries. Next, we have statutory versus non-statutory, okay? So with a statutory trust, it means that you have your state, right? So it's set up in a specific state, and it has all of the state statutes and codes, right? So let's just say you are in New York, right? So you set up that trust in New York, and now all of the state laws or the state statutes or codes are inside of your trust, right? They're written inside of your trust, which means that now you are restricted to where you can only use that trust in that state, okay? So that's what a statutory trust is, which means that that state has the power to regulate your trust, and usually that trust is registered. So it's either registered with the state, and it's now a part of the public records. You don't want that type of trust. On the contrary, you have a non-statutory trust. So with that being said, the jurisdiction is the common law legal system. So you're not restricted to any one state, and there's no state statutes and codes inside of that trust. So you could use it anywhere in the nation or any of the territories, okay? Which is the type of trust that you want, because it's not going to be registered with the state. So it's going to remain private, and no one is going to know the contents of the trust, okay? Next, you have revocable versus irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, that is where the grantor, the person who's creating the trust, has revocability. So that means that if they are putting property into the trust, they can take it back. If they're setting up the trust, they can terminate it at any point in time. If they're appointing a trustee or beneficiaries, they can remove them, right? And they can make any changes that they want to the trust, okay? So, so that's what a revocable trust is. Because it can be changed by the person who's actually creating the trust, it is not seen as fully solidified, right? So that means that because it can be amended, creditors can come after it. That's one. And two, if it was to end up in litigation, the judge can pierce through that type of trust because it can be changed by the person who created it, okay? And if it is end up being pierced through by the judge, that means that they're going to force you to bring the trust to court, and then it's going to be a part of the public records, which is not what you want, because you want your trust estate to remain private. You don't want anyone to know who your beneficiaries are or the net worth or whatever assets you have inside of the trust, okay? So it's very important that your trust, contract, or estate remains private, okay? So that is revocable. Now, on the other side, we have irrevocable. So every single trust is going to fall within these categories, okay, guys? So with the irrevocable, the grantor has irrevocability. That means that they cannot make any changes during their lifetime. That means that they cannot remove the trustees or the beneficiaries. That means that they cannot make any type of amendments to the actual trust, and they cannot terminate the trust. And if they were to put property inside of the trust, they cannot take it back. The property would have to be sold back to them, okay? So because they have irrevocability, the grantor, it is actually it actually provides asset protection, right? So creditors cannot come after this type of trust, and it is highly unlikely that a judge will pierce through this type of trust and force you to produce it in court, okay? So if you want any type of trust, it is an irrevocable trust. That is what we call a bulletproof trust. That's the type of trust that you want, okay? So next, how do we actually create a trust, right? So first, I gave you a list of different types of trust or categories. So you need to determine the best type of trust for you, your family, your business, your organization, right? So out of the categories that I just listed, what I recommend is that you have an express trust, right? That is non-statutory, that is discretionary, so you have the discretion to be able to do whatever you need to do with it. That is complex in nature, and that is irrevocable, okay? Out of all of those categories that I just mentioned, okay? So once you have done your research and now you know the type of trust that you actually want to create, you need to determine a name for the trust. Name the trust, okay? So two things. One, do not name the trust after yourself. So if your name is Rebecca Lee, do not name the trust Rebecca Lee, okay? So you want to have some type of privacy, some type of obscurity. So you want to name it something that's not directly related to you, right? Last names are okay, but you don't want to use your full name. You could use initials, you could use terms like family, legacy, dynasty, you know, things like that, okay? So once you have determined that, just know that you do not have to have the word trust in the name of the trust, okay? So it doesn't have to end in trust. And sometimes you don't want people to know that it is a trust, right? So it could be, you know, Armstrong Global, right? So nobody knows that that's a trust. It just sounds like an entity or organization, okay? So after you have determined what you're going to name the trust, then you want to appoint the different parties involved in the trust, okay? So we have the grantor. The grantor is the person who's establishing the trust. So, and then you have the trustee. So out of these two positions, you can't serve as both. You cannot serve if you are creating an irrevocable trust. You cannot serve as the grantor and the trustee. You have to choose one. And if you were to choose one, you definitely want to choose to be the trustee so that you can have all the power and control over your assets, whatever assets you're putting inside of the trust, over your money, okay? And so you are going to actually appoint someone else to be your grantor on paper. So that's going to be somebody who is on paper going to be listed as the person who established the trust. That person can be a next of kin. So it could be a sibling, a grandparent, a parent, a neighbor, someone who's actually 18 and older and able to notarize the trust with you, okay? Because the trust does need to be notarized. So let's say that you appointed a sibling to be the grantor, you appointed yourself to be the trustee. You have all the power and control. Then you have to appoint a beneficiary. So the beneficiary is the person or people or entity that you want to inherit your assets once the trust is terminated, okay? And then lastly is the successor. So the successor is the person who's going to take over after you. Because if you are setting up a trust and this trust is going to last 100 years, Just know that this trust is going to outlive you. It's designed to do that. And if it outlives you, then you want to make sure that you have a successor or somebody who is ready to take over when, when you step down, when you resign, when you expire, when you become incapacitated, okay? So they just pick up where you left off, okay? So next, you're going to actually create the trust agreement. So you're going to put all the rules and regulations and provisions and sections and articles and stuff like that inside of your contract, okay? So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you what an actual trust looks like so that you can begin to become familiar with this type of contract, okay? So now I told you guys that the trust needs to be notarized. So it needs to be notarized, which actually makes it legal. And now that it's notarized, you can actually operate the trust. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to have a board meeting saying that you're going to actually open up a bank account. And then you're going to go down to the bank and open up that bank account. So you're going to give them two things. You're going to give them the certificate of trust. The certificate of trust is proof of identity that the trust actually exists, because the bankers, they cannot just go to the Secretary of State's website and look up your trust to actually see that it actually exists, okay? So you want to provide them with a certificate of trust to prove that it is a legal entity, okay? And then you want to provide them with the EIN. So you're going to apply for an EIN for banking purposes so that you can get a checking account for your trust. That is what is going to be considered your trust fund, okay? And then you're going to fund your trust, okay? And then the last thing is you want to transfer assets into the trust. So you funding your trust is you actually putting that initial asset in there. So let's just say you funded with $1,000. So now that $1,000 belongs to the trust, okay? And the most important thing is you actually protecting your assets by putting your assets inside of the trust. So those assets could be a house, a car, furniture, jewelry, insurance policies, brokerage accounts, bank accounts, things like that, okay? So you actually have to transfer the assets in there. So you're going to list it inside of the trust, and then you have to do the appropriate paperwork. So for example, if you have a house, then you're going to deed it over from your personal name into the trust, okay? That is what's actually going to make the trust the owner of that property now. And now that the trust is the owner of that property, it is going to have to pay all of the bills. It has the financial responsibility to now take over and pay the bills for that particular property, okay? So let's see here. So we're going to talk about asset protection in just a minute. I just want to see what's going on in the chat. How are you guys feeling so far with the information that you're learning? So if you're learning some good stuff, put some fires or some gems or something in the chat. Let's see. I see some questions here. So we're going to save the questions for a little bit later. I see India has a question. I see Shaya has a question. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see some hearts. I see some fires. Okay. Thank you for the fireballs. All right, all right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so now we are going to dive in. I'm so jumping in on this. Okay, Drew. See, Drew knows what time it is. I love it. So now we're going to dive into how to actually protect your assets, you guys, okay? Because that is the sole purpose of you actually setting up a trust. It's to protect your assets from creditors, from anyone who's trying to take your property, okay, or your assets. So what can it protect you from? It can protect you from bankruptcy, right? If your lender's trying to take your house away. Foreclosure, same thing, right? If that mortgage company's trying to foreclose on you. Divorce, heavy taxation, lawsuits, probate, right? So I'll just touch on a few of these. So the first one is divorce, you guys. I was actually talking to someone earlier about this, and he lost $500,000 in his divorce, right? And so it actually brought him all the way down to zero. plus 5 houses. So 5 houses plus $500,000. This is what he was telling me earlier today. And that's why he's setting up a trust. So he learned his lesson the hard way. And I don't want you guys to go through that, right? So I don't know if you know this, but a divorce is a transfer of wealth. Okay. So sometimes, unfortunately, one party ends up with everything and the other party ends up with nothing. Okay. And you could actually protect yourself from a divorce with a trust by putting your assets inside of a trust, because a divorce is a lawsuit between two spouses, okay? And anything that is inside of the trust or belongs to the trust or is associated with the trust cannot be pulled into that divorce, right? So you want to be able to protect yourself that way, because the trust is a separate entity from you, okay? So inside of this divorce, it's going to only include everything that's in your personal name, your personal bank accounts, not your trust fund account, right? Your personal, 401k, personal property, things like that, okay? So that's why you want to utilize a trust to protect your assets in the case of a divorce, because you never know, right? You could be married to somebody for 20 years and then things change and boom, they want to take half or all. So now let's talk about heavy taxation, right? Heavy taxation. You guys are giving away 30, 40, 50% of your income to the government, to the IRS, right? You can actually reduce your taxations utilizing a trust. So there are several different ways that we do this, and I'm going to talk about those in just a moment. But there's one particular trust that we include within our structure to really help us out. That is a 508c1a ministry trust. It is actually known as a nonprofit. That's what it is. And it is tax exempt. Okay, so it's tax exempt from federal taxes. It's mandatory, right? It's mandatory. So you actually don't have to file for federal tax exemption as you would with a 501c3. So as long as you have a trust and this trust is designated as a 508c1a, according to the IRC, right, the IRS code, then you are automatically tax exempt. Do you want to know why? That is because of the separation between church and state, okay? So a 508c1a can be labeled as a church. It can be labeled as a faith-based organization, and it can be for religious purposes. It also can be for educational purposes, okay? So for me, I have a 508 and I use it for educational purposes. And guess what I'm doing? I'm educating you guys right now, okay? So with this 508, you're exempt from federal taxes. You can qualify to be exempt from state taxes, county taxes, city taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, okay? All you have to do is apply, and you either get approved or denied, okay? So that is a beautiful thing, because just imagine now not having to pay property taxes anymore because that house is in a 508, right? Or going to the store and not having to pay sales taxes anymore. Once you start saving on taxes, guess what the result is? You actually get to build wealth efficiently, effectively, faster, right? Because you're not giving half of it away. Another beautiful thing is that, remember, this is a nonprofit, right? And so what you can do is you can actually donate to your nonprofit. You can donate to your trust. And you can donate up to 60% of your gross income. So if you're making $100,000, you can donate $60,000 to your 508c1a trust. And now, instead of you being taxed on $100,000, you're now going to be taxed on $40,000 because you donated 60 of it, okay? So now just imagine how many thousands of dollars you're going to be saving that you can now use to invest in real estate, stocks, index funds, crypto, whatever investments that you want. So just think about that, right? So this is what I mean by asset protection, right? You're protecting your money from the government, okay? So the next one is lawsuits, right? With lawsuits, do not wait to get sued, right? You want to protect yourself before that comes. So don't wait to get sued to then realize that you need to protect your assets. You need to protect them now, okay? And anticipate that your neighbor, your brother, your sister, your college roommate, whoever, they want to sue you. You never know, your customer, right? So let's just say that you have a company and this company, one of your customers decide that they want to sue you, right? So with your company, you have an LLC. LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. The word limited is right in front of liability. Okay, so that means that you have limited liability. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you have no liability, and it doesn't mean that you have full liability. Okay, so I'll break that down. So in the event that somebody sues your LLC, right, they can easily find out who the owner is, which is you. Why? Because it's a part of the public records. All they have to do is go to the Secretary of State's website and your name is right there, smacked, right in front of them, and then they'll be able to come after you, okay? So that's one thing. Two, let's just say that they're suing your business. Well, hold on, somebody's off of mute. So let's just say that they're suing your business, right? Well, if they decide to sue your business and now there's a judgment against your business, what's going to happen is if your business cannot fulfill that judgment, then the judge can decide to pierce through that corporate veil of protection, that LLC, and they can go after the owner of the LLC. So if you are the authorized member of that LLC, they can come after you now. And that means that anything that's in your personal name is up for grabs. So they can garnish your bank account and your wages. They can also force you to liquidate your assets or seize them. So you don't want that to happen. So you need to protect yourself in the event that your company is going to get sued, okay? So with that being said, what you want to do is you actually want to have a trust, specifically a business trust, be the actual authorized member of that LLC or a shareholder in the corporation, okay? Because now that's going to give you the first layer of protection that you need in the event of a lawsuit. Because now they're not going to come after you personally, they're going to go after the trust personally, and you're strategically going to operate that trust as a holding company so that in the event that any of those things happen, you're not going to lose any assets or any money, okay? So the last thing that I want to touch on here is probate, you guys. So a lot of us, we are so, we have houses, right? We have houses, cars, we got money in the bank, we have all these assets, but all of those assets are in our personal name. So I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to come off mute and answer the question. So if you have a house right now today, right? The people I have on the call, and that house is in your personal name, how do you expect that house to be transferred to your child's name, right? Your son or your daughter, if you didn't wake up tomorrow? So let me see what you guys have to say about that. Go ahead. You can just come off mute and let me know. So you have a house.
Won't.
Go ahead, Earl.
Hey, it won't get transferred at all.
It won't get transferred. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it absolutely won't.
Onto the
so
state.
it could literally sit there, right? If you don't have if you don't have a will, right? It could sit there. Kendrick said the bank still owns it. Okay, so then the bank is going to foreclose, right? Or what if it's paid off? Then the bank doesn't own it, right? So there's only one way in order for that property to be transferred to your child's name effectively, right? And that way is by your kids going to court, right? So it has to be up to the judge. It has to be up to the judge in the county where that house is, and it's up to them to be able to deed that property over from your name, right? Because you deceased, and it has to be transferred over to them. Okay, so you're actually going to force your children to go to court and to go to probate court, right? So now let's dive in and talk about probate, because probate is actually one, it's inevitable, right? And we don't don't want to put ourselves in that position. So let's just say you got assets, right? You got a house, you got a car, you have 6 figures in the bank, right? But then you also have some debt too. You got student loan debt, you got credit card debt, right? So what's going to happen is if you didn't wake up tomorrow, right? And let's just say you had a will. A will is a wish list. So literally on your wish list, you put, I wish for my son to get my house. I wish for my daughter to get the money in the bank, okay? But at the end of the day, because you didn't have your affairs in order, the state has to do it for you. So because you only had a will, now the state where you live, they have to issue you an estate. And they're going to issue you a revocable trust, right? And with this estate, what's going to happen is now it needs to be represented in probate court, and it needs to be represented by a probate attorney, and all of your assets are going to go inside of this estate, okay? So the house, the car, the money in the bank, right? All of it. So the first thing that's going to happen is your creditors are going to go after your estate. So the student loan debt for the 50,000, the credit card debt for the 25,000, they're going to go after your estate. The judge is going to pay out, right? And so now your children's inheritance is just getting lower and lower and lower. So they start paying off all your debt, right? And then from there, the probate attorney needs to get paid, and you have probate fees or court fees, right? So whatever is left over after that entire process of probate, which could go for months or years, whatever is left over is what your children get, which is unfortunate because you're doing them a disservice, right? Because one is that they just lost you. So they went through a major loss, and now you're forcing them to go to court to inherit property that you already knew that they were going to inherit. So that's why it's important for you to have your affairs in order, before any of this happens, so that you can avoid probate. There's only one way to avoid probate, and that's by having a trust. Because now what's going to happen is if your property, right, that house, that car, that bank account is owned by the trust, then there is no transfer that needs to happen. Because if you didn't wake up tomorrow, guess what? Everything stays intact. The house stays being owned by the trust. Your children are the beneficiaries, right? So technically they own it once the trust is terminated, right? So that's what you want. And another beautiful thing is that whatever debt that you have on the personal side, it dies with you. It can't go after your trust estate. So that is what you want. You want to be set up that way, okay? So now let's talk about a few more things. So let's get into the wealth building formula. I have 3 pillars here. It's structure, credit, and invest, okay? So let's talk about structure. So first, with structure, there's 3 trusts that I recommend, and you guys need to be able to use multiple trusts. You don't want to put all of your assets in one trust, right? We just talked about using the trust as a layer of protection, but if the trust gets sued, you don't want everything to be in one trust, okay? So you need multiple trusts for specific things. So I recommend a business trust, a family trust, and the tax-exempt ministry trust, okay? So let's just talk about the business trust. You could use this trust 2 different ways. You could use it, one, to operate a business. So a trust is actually superior to an LLC. It can do more than an LLC, okay? Because an LLC is a statutory entity, meaning you have to go to the state to register it. You're giving the state power to regulate your trust and your LLC, and actually shut it down at any point in time, right? So that is one thing that you really don't want to do. And then another thing is that your LLC is a part of the public records, okay? So you, instead of you setting up an LLC, you can actually operate your business as a business trust, okay? So that's a beautiful thing. The other way that you can actually operate a business trust is as a holding company, meaning that you already have an LLC, you've been operating it for a while, you don't want to dissolve it, right? You're doing good business with it. So what you want to do is you want to remove yourself as the authorized member of that LLC, okay? And now you're going to have the business trust replace you and be the new authorized member or owner of that LLC. So now that the business trust is the new owner of the LLC, it's actually going to serve as a holding company. So the business trust is going to be non-operational, right? So it doesn't provide any products or services, okay? And it's just used to hold the asset. Your LLC is the asset, okay? And your LLC is going to remain fully operational. So if you have your employees, if you have your products, your services, everything's going to remain intact. The only thing that's going to change is that you remove yourself from the actual articles of organization, and now you have replaced it with the business trust, okay? So let's just say that your LLC is generated, $100,000, right? So what you can do is, because the LLC is a pass-through entity, you can actually pass through that 100,000 to the business trust. So now the LLC has a zero tax liability, and now it's all on the business trust. So now 100,000 came into the business trust, and you have to pay taxes, right? A business trust is actually taxed at the highest tax bracket, right? 37%. And so they do that strategically because they don't want you using this type of entity, okay? So the way that you offset that is, one, with the trust, it's a beautiful thing because you get to spend the money first and you get to pay taxes on what's left over, versus us that are W-2 employees, right? We actually get taxed first and then we spend the leftovers. So that's why it's really nice to have a trust within your structure, because now that 100,000 that came in, you get to spend and then pay taxes on the leftovers. So let's just say that you spent 20, right? And so you expended or deducted 20, and now there's 80 left over. What are you going to do with that $80,000, right? Well, you can actually pay taxes, right? 37% on that 80,000, or you can distribute it to the beneficiary. So if you distribute it to the beneficiary, then on the business trust level, you now have a zero tax liability, and that 80,000 goes to the beneficiary, and the beneficiary is taxed, okay? So that's a strategy. So now the beautiful strategy with this is that you want to make the beneficiary of the business trust another entity, which is your family trust, okay? Because at the end of the day, the money that's coming from the business, you need to spend it on your family anyways. So that 80,000 is now going to flow to the private family trust, and it has to be taxed, right? So these two entities, the business trust and the family trust, one, they file taxes, okay? They are for-profit entities. They file a 1041 with the IRS, okay? So the point is that we want to offset and reduce as much and expend as much, so that we don't have we don't have to pay that much in taxes. So the 80,000 that came into the private family trust, what you want to do is you want to expend as much as possible. So from that 80,000, let's just say that we spent 70 of it. So now there's $10,000 that's left that you now have to actually file and pay taxes on, right? 37%. So what you can do at this point is, the beneficiaries are your children. You don't want your children to get taxed. So you can actually donate the balance, right? So that $10,000, instead of you paying taxes, you can donate it to your 508c1a ministry trust, okay? So you're going to go ahead and donate that 10,000, and now at the private family trust level, your tax liability is zero, and from the 508, you're done paying taxes, because that entity does not file any federal taxes, okay? Because everything that comes in is considered a donation, okay? And so you do not file taxes on donations with this particular tax exempt trust, okay? So now you're done filing taxes, which is good. So this is how you can actually strategically reduce your taxes. So now let's move on to the next one, which is credit, right? OPM, right? This is what we want. We want to use other people's money in order to grow our wealth, right? We want to actually put the trust estate into a position where it could actually sustain itself, and we don't have to be pouring in our W-2 money in order to be sustaining the trust, okay? So the first thing is that you get to qualify for grants, right? So you have a nonprofit within your structure, so you want to utilize the strategy where you can actually apply for OPM by way of nonprofit grants. The second strategy is by you leveraging credit, right? So you have your personal credit, but you want to be able to actually build business credit with the business trust. So it's identical to credit with a corporation or an LLC, okay? It's the same credit. And so you want to be able to get business credit with the trust so that you are able to leverage that credit, because businesses, they get higher lines of credit. That's one. And two, you can actually liquidate that credit. So let's just say you had a credit card for 50,000. You could liquidate that credit card and now you could utilize it for our next pillar, which is invest, right? So now let's move on to our next pillar, right? So we have invest, and these are the investments that I recommend. I recommend that you have a life insurance policy, right? Index universal life insurance policy, and real estate, right? So those are two assets that I have, and that they are owned by the trust. And this is what I recommend for people that want to actually build wealth, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the insurance policies, right? So with the insurance policies, these policies, they actually build what we call cash value, okay? And so that cash value with this specific policy, it actually is going to mirror the market, and you're going to earn compound interest, right? So just imagine you putting yourself in a position to where you're earning compound interest on every single dollar that you are putting into that policy, right? So that's a beautiful thing. Now with this policy, right, it is tax-free and it is liquid, right? So this is a liquid asset. So you can actually access your funds whenever you need to or whenever you want to, right? Unlike real estate, where you would have to sell the property or you would have to mortgage it out or get a HELOC or something like that, okay? So that is another thing. So with this particular policy, what you want to do is you want to have the trust be the owner of the insurance policy, be the payer of the insurance policy, and be the beneficiary of the insurance policy. So that in the event that something, something happens, it is, going to be protected, right? That death benefit is going to go to the actual trust fund, the trust estate, okay? And so the trust is going to be the owner of the policy, and you are going to be the insured, right? And so now you want to put yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first. This is a concept that we just do not practice. We are so used to getting paid leftovers, and we're so used to paying ourselves last, right? And you don't want to do that. And so the way that you pay yourself first is by you you are getting your W-2 income, and the first thing that you do, right, when you get your W-2 income is that you pay taxes, right? So the IRS took theirs, the Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, 401k, they all did their deductions before you actually got paid. And then once you got paid, the leftovers was deposited into your checking account. Let's just be real, right? And so now the first thing that you do is, right, that money is deposited into, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, right? And so you just paid the bank, right? And now the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to pay your mortgage or your rent, right? You're going to pay your car note. You're going to put gas in the car. You're going to buy groceries. You're going to pay the kids' tuition, right? You're going to do all of these things first. And then whatever is left over is what you save. You either leave it in your checking account, or you transfer it to a high yield savings account or something like that, right? And so you are actually designed to pay yourself last, right? And so what you want to do is you want to, when you get paid, right, you want to actually funnel that money into your insurance policy when it's nice and cushioned, right? Not in the beginning of the policy, because you have something called a surrender charge, right? So once it's nice and cushioned, what you want to do is you want to funnel your paycheck into the policy and then borrow it back out, right? Because you have to pay your bills, right? So let's just say that you got $5,000 right now. You just got paid Friday, $5,000, right? Instead of you paying your mortgage, your car note, groceries, all this stuff, you're going to make a premium payment and you're going to park that $5,000 into your policy, okay? So there's a specific account that builds cash value. Like I said, it mirrors the market, right? So with the index, with the IUL, Index Universal Life, it mirrors the market. So it mirrors the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500 is doing 9%, I just spoke to my insurance company yesterday, and they told me that I made 9.2. So I'm going to say 9.2, right? So if the S&P 500 is doing, 9.2%, then guess what? You are going to make 9.2% return. They're going to match it on your cash value. So whatever is inside of your cash value, okay? So that $5,000 that you just got paid, you're going to park it inside of your insurance policy. You're going to secure that you're actually going to make that compound interest, that 9.2, right? And then one of the beautiful things is that you actually get to borrow against it. You can collateralize it. So you can borrow against that cash value. And when you are borrowing against it, right, you are taking a loan from the insurance company. So they are not removing the money from your cash value. They are actually issuing you a loan from their reserves, from their money. Okay, so they're going to issue you a loan, and and now what you're going to do is you're going to receive that loan, and then now you are going to pay your bills. So once you borrow borrow from the carrier, you get to pay your mortgage, your groceries, your car note, all of these things. So now you have actually paid yourself first because you have $5,000 in your cash value, compounding, making 9%, versus what if you would have paid everything, right? The mortgage and the groceries and all that stuff, you probably would have only had $1,000 left. So you probably would have only been able to save $1,000 and put it into your policy. So which one sounds better, for you to make 9.2% on 5,000 or for you to make 9.2% on 1,000, right? So 5,000 is definitely better. And that's how you're going to build wealth faster and more efficiently and more effectively by using this strategy, right? And so the beautiful thing about the IUL policy is that you never have to pay the loan back, right? The loan is just going to be deducted from your death benefit, okay? So they are going to charge you interest. Usually it's not, very high. So I spoke to my insurance company yesterday. They charged me 3.5%, but I'm making 9.2. So it kind of just, washes itself out, okay? So now the next investment that I recommend is real estate, right? So you can actually purchase real estate with your trust. Your trust does need to qualify for a mortgage, right? So you're going to have to put money inside of your trust fund account and show bank statements to prove that the trust can actually sustain a mortgage, okay? And you want to get an investment loan to where you only have to put down 20%, and they are actually going to fund 80%. So now that you're getting this investment loan, where are you going to get that 20% from? Well, previously we just talked about building credit, OPM, right? So you're going to build credit for your business trust. You're going to leverage that credit, and you're going to actually liquidate that credit card, and you're going to use it for the down payment for your real estate, for your investment property. But before you do that, right? Before you use it as a down payment for real estate, what you're going to do is you are going to park that money inside of your IUL policy, inside of your insurance policy, okay? So you're going to park that money inside of your insurance policy. You're going to borrow it back out. So now that 50,000 that you have in your line of credit, you just increase your cash value. Now your cash value that money is now making 9.2, right? According to my company yesterday. So 9.2, and then you're going to borrow it back out and use it as a down payment for the real estate. So now you have a house that's cash flowing, right? And so that cash flow, you're going to funnel it inside of your life insurance policy, borrow it back out, and be able to pay your credit card and your mortgage, okay? So that is how you're going to build wealth for your trust estate and actually build generational wealth for your children, okay? So let's move on. We're about to wrap it up. So how do you actually transfer wealth, right? I had asked you guys this question earlier, right? If you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you expect that house that's in your personal name to be transferred, right? So you need to make sure that you put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. Because that house that's in your personal name, that house is going to outlive you. So the point is not for you to be the owner of that house. The point is for you to control that house while you are living, okay? And the way that you do that is by putting that property into a trust and you being the trustee and controlling that property, that asset, okay? So that is the definition of stewardship, where you own nothing but you control everything, all of the assets. Put yourself in a position to where you are a good steward of your wealth, okay, guys? Not ownership. Gone are those days, okay? They are literally taking your property from you because you have it in your personal name. You are a walking liability, okay? So the next thing is TCUs. Trust certificate units. That is how you are actually going to transfer your wealth, okay? Have you heard of stock certificates? So stock certificates represent ownership in a company, right? Well, TCUs represent beneficial interest, which is quote unquote ownership, in a trust. So your beneficiaries are going to be TCU holders. They have the trust certificate units, right? And so if they ever wanted to remove themselves from the trust, all they have to do is cash in their TCUs, and then they're able to walk away with their assets. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is your trust is going to your trust is going to create 100 trust certificate units, and then they're going to disperse them. You're going to disperse them to the beneficiaries, right? So 100 TCUs is just going to represent 100% beneficial interest in the trust. So let's just say you have 4 beneficiaries. Then what you want to do is, if you want to distribute the TCUs evenly, you're going to give each beneficiary 25 units. And let's just say that there's cash flow of 100,000 that needs to be distributed. Well, you just know that that 100,000 in cash flow is going to be evenly distributed based on how many TCUs that beneficiary has. So if I have 25 units, you're literally going to hand me $25,000. So that's the way that works. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is preservation, because how many times have we seen these athletes, famous families, not have their affairs in order, and they come up with 10, 15, $100 million, and by the second, third generation, the money is gone, is dissipated, it's, spent through, right? So you want to put preservation tools and tactics in place in order to make sure that those beneficiaries do not spend through the money, okay? And there's 2 things, right, that's going to secure the preservation of your wealth. One is you having the trust that has the spendthrift provisions, meaning that, hey, they can only spend 20% on lifestyle and the other 80% needs to be invested, right? That's one rule or regulation that the beneficiary has to follow in order for them to get paid, okay? So the other thing is life insurance, right? You need to have that tool in place in order to preserve the trust. And this is how it works, right? So the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on every single person associated with the trust. So that's you as the trustee, and that's the beneficiaries, and that is all of the future beneficiaries. So you're going to have those provisions inside of your trust saying that when a baby is born into the trust, right, a TCU holder, right? The trust or the trustee is going to take out a policy on them as early as 30 days, right? And so that is what you want to do, because you are human asset, right? You are what we call a human capital. So if anything was to happen to you as the trustee, the trust is actually suffering, a loss and needs to be compensated, right? And so that death benefit, right? So if anything happened to you, the death benefit, because the trust is the beneficiary, that death benefit is going to go to the trust. So the trust is now going to be replenished for that loss. That is going to help with the preservation of your wealth. Okay. So that's one. Two, with these trust fund babies, right? You are going to take out a policy on these trust fund babies, and we need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, right? It has like a bad, connotation to it, but no, it's actually a good thing, right? Because these babies, were putting insurance policies on them, right? As like I said, as soon as possible. And we're paying into it, right? And so when this trust fund baby grows up to be 18 years old, they're about to go to college. They need their first car. They need an apartment or a dorm, or, college tuition, all these things. So they could either, start building credit and start getting out loans, or they could take out a loan from the trust, right? So let's just say that the trust fund baby takes out a loan from the trust, right, for $50,000. That $50,000, now what can happen is, instead of them paying, for the student loans and the dealership for that loan, they could pay into the trust. So now the trust is going to charge them, let's just say 3% interest on that 50,000. So now the trust is actually gaining interest, which is a beautiful thing, right? But let's just say that that trust fund baby decides to default and actually doesn't pay, the monthly payment or the quarterly payment for the funds that he or she borrowed from the trust. Well, what's going to happen is it actually becomes a risk-free loan, because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money came from that beneficiary's insurance policy. So the trustee actually borrowed against the cash value and took out the 50,000 from the insurance company. So that money came from the insurance company's reserve. They issued a check to the trust. The trust then issued a check to the beneficiary. So it's okay that the beneficiary decided to default on the loan, because the trust is going to be replenished once that beneficiary's death benefit hits the trust account, okay? That is how you're going to preserve the wealth. That's how you're going to secure it to the point that the money is going to last many, many, many generations, okay? So let's wrap it up, you guys. These are the books that I recommend. What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really, really, really good book. Teaches you how to actually use trust and insurance together. The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. Teaches you about trusteeship or operating the trust. Family Wealth, it teaches you how to actually run a family office, okay? You want to run your trust like a business, and you want to run your family like a business, okay? And then the last one is The Complete Book of Trust. Like I told you, there's hundreds of different types of trust. So I want you to do your due diligence and make sure that you choose the best type of trust for you, okay, guys? So now what I want to do, let's see here. So let's work together, right? I actually do have a program where I teach you guys how to set up these three different types of trust: the business trust, the family trust, and the ministry trust. And so you have three options. The first one is you could do it yourself, right? And I have a DIY course. You could do it yourself. There's 42 video modules. You get to download the templates. I'm about to show you one of the contracts. You get to download the templates, and then you get to watch the video training showing you step by step on how to actually set it up. And it breaks down every single paragraph in the trust so that you can actually understand what you're operating, okay? So you get lifetime access to the course. You get all the resources and ebooks. So the resources are the tax forms that you need. The resources are the for you to do board meetings, right? for the forms that you need to transfer your assets, like your car, your house, how to create a bank account, things like that. The ebooks are the books that I just recommended. You actually get them in electronic version. And then lastly is the Facebook community. We have over 200 trustees in the Facebook community that you get to actually network with them and collaborate with them and get guidance, from them, because they have been doing this longer than you have, right? So the course is only $9.97. And like I said, you get lifetime access. The second option is Done With You, where we do it as a group, you guys. So I come on board and it's Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? And so what we do is on Monday, we set up the business trust together. Tuesday, we set up the family trust together. Wednesday, we set up the 508 ministry trust together. And then Thursday, we do our applications for the EINs and our board meetings and promissory notes. And then on Friday, we transfer our assets into the trust and we learn about infinite banking so that we could build wealth with the trust, okay? So you get the accountability, you get to make sure that you're actually setting up your trust the right way, and you actually get to ask questions live, and you get to do it as a group. The groups are phenomenal, right? Because you get to be in an environment or space where people are, asking questions that you didn't even think of. So now you're learning more than as if, well, if you didn't do it by yourself, right? Or if you did it by yourself. So you still get access to the course, the Facebook community, the resources, the ebooks with the Done With You. And the workshops are $2,500. And then the last one is if you want to do private sessions, right? So if you have multiple assets, if you have a really demanding schedule, if you want that individualized extended support, if you want me to hold your hand, if you don't want to do it in a group setting, right? If you have very unique situations, things like that, or if you need your trust customized a little bit differently than normal, then you want to do the private sessions. They're $10,000 and you get multiple Zoom call sessions and stuff like that. It's actually phenomenal. So those are the three options. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what a trust looks like and the actual online program. So this is what a trust looks like. So everything that you see in red is what you guys are going to be like customizing and filling out. So this trust here is 51 pages. So you see there's a lot of things in red that you need to customize for your business, for your family, for your structure, stuff like that. So these are all of the sections and provisions in order for you to be able to operate your trust efficiently, okay? So this is what it looks like. And then this is what the actual online program looks like. So if you get the course, this is the actual course, and it, like I said, it has 42 video modules. So you learn what a trust entity is, you learn how to actually set up the ministry trust, the family trust, the business trust, some tax strategies so that you can reduce your taxes, how to protect your assets and transfer them into the trust, and then how to build wealth with the trust using credit, investing in index funds and doing infinite banking, and then the resources in the ebooks, okay? So we are all done with that. And now what I'm going to do is pass it on to my partner. His name is Marvin Mitchell. He has been a financial advisor for 18 years, and he's going to come and teach us how we are going to build wealth leveraging infinite banking. So Marvin, you have the floor. Let's see here.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm blessed, and you?
Wonderful.
All right, good. Are we ready right now? I had just stepped aside, stepped aside to the restroom and came back.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, if you need a couple of minutes, what I will do is I will start answering some questions to see what we have in the chat.
No, I'll go ahead and go. Okay. So, all right. So, hello, everybody. I am Marvin Mitchell. So, what I do is I specialize. I'm partnering with Christina. She is the expert when it comes to the trust. In fact, she was able to show me some things at a fraction at a fraction of the cost of what I paid $40,000+ for. Right. So I became a little bit infuriated. I'm like, man, I paid 40,000 for an inferior trust, and you offer for like 1/30 of the cost. Right. So I don't know how she does it at the framework that she does, but she teaches you how to go out and actually empower yourself to write your trust, to empower yourself, to protect yourself against taxation, to protect yourself against all different types of things. Right. So what I do is I run the insurance arm. So I focus on helping you to multiply your money by utilizing life insurance. So when I say utilizing um, life insurance is a powerful tool. As she said earlier, when you recognize that it's called life insurance, not death insurance. I want y'all to think about that. Most people don't know that. Definitely, historically, more people use the life insurance for their life than they did for their death, because you can actually borrow against your policies and make your money work for you multiple times off the same dollar. So I'll just give you an example and tell you a quick four-way play. This is one example of how I use my life insurance policy. So I use my life insurance policy in a way that when I borrow against it, let's say I built up a cash value. I could actually take that cash value and preserve it. And then I go out and get a business funding, business credit, and then I turn that into cash, and then I use that credit to go out and buy, let's say, a real estate property. Now, I take my life insurance policy, I borrow against it, and I pay off that credit card right away, so I don't incur any interest. So I just made money off my insurance policy that continued to grow as if I never touched it. I just paid off the credit, which means I just recovered all of my points where I could travel for free, hotels for free, because it's my points. And by the way, when you use points, it's all tax free. And now I'm making money off of my real estate, right? The appreciation plus the income. Once the real estate portfolio grows, I could do a home equity line of credit and borrow from my equity to go out and buy another property. Now I just made money off my money 4 times off the same dollar, right? If anybody got that, put some fireballs in the comments, because once you learn these types of tools, I'm telling you, it will change your life. So I want you to understand this. So just to give you a little napkin math, let's say I had $100,000 just sitting in cash, and I spent $30,000 to buy a vehicle. Let's say I have $100,000 that was earning me 5%. Well, I'm gonna go even more simple. Let's say I have $100,000 that's earning me 5%. I didn't spend anything. 100,000 earning me 5%. 1 year later, how much money do I have? Write in the comments. Got $100,000 that's earning me 5%. 1 year later, how much money do I have? Just waiting on somebody to guess. $100,000 earning me 5%. 1 year later, how much money do I have? Somebody, please. All right. Thank you. We got Josh. We got Drew. Thank you for some brave people who were not afraid to guess. 2 people out of 28 people guess. Both people were right. It's 105. So 26 of you at least must have thought that it was a trick question. It's not. $100,000 earning 5%. That's 105,000. Well, let's say I have $100,000 and I take 30,000. If it's earning 5%, I'm only earning 5% off my 70,000, not the entire 100,000 anymore. Let's say I have this money now in cash value. It's earning me 5%. So if I have $100,000 in my cash value earning me 5%, and I borrowed $30,000 against that policy, guess what? 1 year later, I still have $105,000. How do I still have $105,000? Because I never took money from that policy. The key word is that I borrowed against that policy. Borrowing against the policy means that I didn't spend the money. It continued to grow as if I never touched it. So if I understand that my money will grow, whether I borrow against it or not, the exact same way, what do you all think? Should I borrow against it or should I not borrow against it? Write it in the comments. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's you use it or you lose it. Absolutely, I want to borrow against it, right? Now, another thing, if I am going to borrow against it, should I buy an asset or do you think I should focus my time buying a liability? That's an easy one. Should I buy an asset or should I buy a liability? Absolutely. I'm going to buy an asset. Why would I buy an asset? Because now I get to make money off the life insurance policy as if I never touched it. Probably got my points from the credit card, and I just bought me an asset that's actually paying me, making me money. So one of the things that we have to learn, you all, is we have to learn about financial literacy. Financial literacy, once we learn financial literacy, it's really simple, right? It's how can I compound my money and make the money and keep the same money in my economy? If I'm paying, okay, I went to the bank today. I had a cash a line of credit, and that line of credit was 11%, and I had money sitting in the bank earning me about 4 or 5%. So my choice is do I just keep that loan and I'm paying 11%? Or do I take that cash that's earning me 5% and pay off the loan that's 11%? Well, I'm going to take my cash. I took my cash and I paid off the loan that's 11%. Now, let's just say if I had two loans, one loan was the line of credit that was 11%. Then I had another loan that I got at a good time. It was only 3.5%. I could have paid that loan off too, but I kept that loan. Why did I keep that loan? Because if I'm making 5% in interest in my bank and I'm paying 3.5% on a credit card, why would I rush to pay off a 3.5% interest credit when I'm making 5% on my left hand? Does that make sense? So it's all an interest rate game. You just have to think about how do you capture the spread on interest rate? Well, the thing about life insurance that's so unique is that you can do both. You can continue making money and it'll continue to snowball as your account gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The interest rates continue to accrue. Or you could even go to the bank and they'll use your cash value as collateral for you to get a loan. So you have a lot of different options. That's why life insurance should be your first asset. So what I'm going to do, you all, I'm going to show you one thing. I'm going to teach you all a really quick lesson on life insurance. You're going to know more about life insurance today in the next 10 minutes than anybody has ever taught you about life insurance. I can promise you that. You're going to understand why it works, how it works, and also you're going to understand why the government cares about your life insurance policy. So let me go ahead and I'm going to switch over to my laptop. I don't know why my camera is blurry. It's not making sense because my lens is clean. All right. But I'm going to switch over to my computer so my camera won't be so blurry. Okay, here we go. All right, so this what I'm about to show you is called 10-minute lesson on life insurance. And Christina, I'm coming in on a different name.
All right, awesome.
Okay. I'm gonna log off here.
All right, you guys, so I'm going to put in the chat a couple of different links. So one of them is if you want to book a call with Marvin Mitchell's team in regards to setting up your IUL policies, the website is insurancetrustcall.com. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. Another thing is that only for you guys who are on the call right now, I am actually going to be giving you guys a 20% discount on the program, okay? So you guys can actually use the code TRUST20 in order to be able to take advantage of the 20%. It's going to go for the next 24 hours, you guys. So action takers are money makers. And if you don't have the full 20% right now, then what you want to do is you want to be able to put a deposit down so that you can secure that 20% discount, okay? So if you know that you want the program and you want to secure the 20% discount, then go ahead and click the link that's in the chat in order to put a $200 deposit so you could secure the discount. So I'll go ahead and put those in the chat while we learn about life insurance.
That's crazy. 20% discount is already super, super, super inexpensive, you all. So make sure you take advantage of that. So this is really quick called the 10-minute lesson on life insurance. So let's say you had a $500,000 death benefit. Now, on that $500,000 death benefit, there is a minimum amount of premium you could put into your policy for the $500,000 death benefit. There's also a maximum amount that you can put into the policy. Who do you all think determines the minimum amount that you could put into a policy? Who determines the minimum? All right, shout out to Drew. Drew just invested.
Yeah, shout out to Drew. I just saw that. Congratulations.
I love that because Drew is an action taker. He's not afraid. You know what, Drew? I'm gonna throw in, just because you're such a fast action taker, I'm gonna throw in my entire course called Path to Prosperity Blueprint. It's gonna break down over 8 hours of exactly how to get wealthy using your life insurance policy.
Thank you so
So
much. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna drop that in for free.
And
So the minimum is determined.
Drew told me
You're
that
right.
he's a former nurse. So shout out to being a nurse.
That's awesome. You're right, Earl. It is the insurance company. The insurance company, they know how to have actuaries and accountants and really smart people to determine what's the least amount a person can put in and still make a profit. Who do you all think determines the maximum amount that you can put into an insurance policy? The maximum amount that you can put into a policy. Who determines it? Yep. Edisoyi, if I said your name right, I probably said it wrong. Earl said, Uncle Sam, you're right. It is the government. So why would the government be concerned? Chloe has it right. Why would the government be concerned with how much money you put into a life insurance policy? Why would the government? Think about this. What is the one thing the government cares about? This is going to be open your eyes, you all, once you realize this. The government cares about what? Write it in the chat. Taxes. You're right, Bruce. I love it. Bruce has it right. I love it. Earl said our investments or their retirement. You're absolutely right. Okay. The government cares about this because in the old days, wealthy individuals used to pump millions of dollars into these life insurance policies because it was invisible to the IRS. You can't tax it. It was almost like it was offshore. It's creditor proof, creditor protected. Nobody can tax it, nobody can see it, right? So there are a lot of different ways to design these policies, right? Infinite product designs. But what the government did is they said, you know what? In the 1980s, they created something to say, we want more of your retirement dollars. We're going to market this. We're going to make it sound so good. We're gonna really promote people to invest in these things. And guess what those things were? Your qualified plans. Qualified plans, your IRAs, 401ks, your SEPs, your 403bs, any retirement plan. They're gonna promote you to go into it. Why? Because as your account grows, so does taxes. So the way I like to explain this is kind of write it right here. Let's just say you have a let's just say you have a business. This is your business. Now, in that business, you have a business partner. That business partner is getting 33% of your business. Now, everything was fine at first, but then you discovered that that business partner that you have is lazy, which means you're doing all of the work, Earl. You're working hard. You're staying up, burning the midnight oil, making sure that you do everything that you can to make this business work. And this person is just sitting there collecting 33% of the business. Now, here's my question for you. If you had a chance to buy this lazy business partner out, would you buy that person out now? Or would you wait until you did all of the hard work and your business grew, and now you owe that person 33% of a whole lot more money? Oh, and by the way, what if later on that person can decide after a certain amount of time that they're no longer 33% owner? Now all of a sudden I'm 45% owner. There's nothing you can do about it. Can you see why buying that person out earlier would make more sense? That is how your qualified plans work, you all. So your qualified plan is that the IRS is that lazy business partner. You're doing all the work. You're putting your money aside, and that lazy business partner is pot's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And just when you are ready to buy that person out at the end, they decide to increase taxes, and now all of a sudden you got to pay that person an even bigger stake. Okay, this is what happens if you're not careful. So what the government did is they said, so that we don't treat this like your 401k, you can still do it, but you have to obey up to a certain line. And if you go over that line, it's called a MEC. A MEC is a modified endowment contract. In order to keep your policy from being a MEC, there's a 7-pay rule, which means that you have to put money into this policy over a certain amount of years to avoid the taxation forever. That's how that works, right? Now, let's go back to the $500,000. Let's just say the minimum to put in there was $500 and the maximum was $10,000. Why would anybody put $10,000 into a policy when they could put in $500? Now, if you put in $500, what kind of policy is this called? Called a term. What's the one benefit of a term policy? The only additional benefit is the death benefit. It has no cash value in a term policy. Once your term is up, unless you convert it, once your term is up, it is done, right? So why would a person put in $10,000? It better have some good benefits. Those benefits are tax-deferred growth, tax-free distributions. You're going to get a competitive return, high contributions. You're going to get additional benefits such as long-term care, collateral opportunities, which means that you can borrow against this and your money continues to grow as if you never touched it. It's safe, no loss provisions, guaranteed loan options, which means nobody can turn you down. Anytime you want a loan, doesn't matter if you have a job, nobody's going to say anything. You're going to be able to get your loan. Unstructured loan payments, which means nobody can force you to pay the money back once you borrow it. Nobody's reporting you to the credit bureau if you don't pay it back. In fact, if you don't pay it back, is simply going to be subtracted from your death benefit plus interest when you die. Your death benefit is always going to be more than your cash value. So again, you don't have to pay it back. Just because you don't have to pay it back doesn't mean you shouldn't pay it back. Because if you do pay it back, you remove any future interest, and also you increase your ability to borrow more in the future. And also liquidity, use, and control. Another thing about a qualified plan is that you can't touch it until you're 59 and a half without a 10% penalty. Well, inside of the cash value, you can borrow against it, take the money. I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, it doesn't matter. You have liquidity, use, and control of that money right away, right? So when you design this policy, you want to design it for the lowest amount of death benefit and the highest amount of living benefit, the highest amount of cash value. Now, most agents don't do it this way. Most agents give you the highest amount of death benefit and the lowest amount of cash value, which is why most policies don't really grow that much. You can have a cash value policy and it's showing barely anything you can borrow 3 years later because you paid for it. You see, when they structure it for the highest amount of death benefit, understand that they're getting paid a lot more commissions. If you structure it for the lowest death benefit and the highest cash value, that's sometimes a 70% pay cut for that agent. So why don't everybody tell you about this? Because it's very hard to get a man to understand something that their wallet depends on them not understanding. Okay? I don't know if y'all caught that. But that's true. A lot of the bigger industries, they don't want to promote it because if all their agents start taking a 70% pay cut, their business would be in trouble, right? So this is just really quickly the 10-minute lesson on life insurance. This is really what you need to know. And there are a lot of different things that we could talk about. But more importantly, what you need to do now is schedule a time to meet with our team. We're offering a $450 savings, which means we typically charge money for a consultation, and we're going to do it absolutely free. You're going to be able to meet with somebody from my team, discuss your options, learn about this, and learn about how this works in your situation. And what we're going to do is help you to find the money. What find the money means is that some of you may not think you have enough money to even save. And we're going to show you that what if you're losing money unknowingly and unnecessarily? What if we can help you to find money that you don't even know you have simply by restructuring what you're already doing? Not even making more money, but simply restructuring what you're already doing. So if we're able to help you to find an extra $500 to $1,000 a month that you don't even know that you have, how many of you would save some of that money? Most of you. And that's what we're going to help you to do. So take us up on that offer. Christina just dropped the link. All you have to do is click on this link, and that is the insurancetrustcall.com, insurancetrustcall.com, and we will know that you came from Christina because you clicked on that unique link, and we won't charge you for that consultation. So make sure that you click on that, and what I will do is I will turn this back to Christina, but before I do, I will answer a couple of questions. If anybody has any questions about the insurance, about anything I just talked about before we turn it over to Christina to finalize the questions on the trust side.
I did see some questions in the chat. Let me see. What did it say? It said,
I saw somebody who said, how quickly can I borrow against it? And you can borrow against, if you do this right, you can borrow against it as soon as 30 days later. So that's a pretty cool feature.
Earl said, Marvin, I keep hearing that C Corps and LLCs can buy IULs possibly as key man, and they expense 40 to 50K on their taxes. Is that true? How does that work?
There's it's a little bit more in depth than that. I mean, yes, it's true in a sense, but it's definitely going to have to come with some, you got to do some things with your business. Your business have to be structured the right way. But yes, I mean, in so many words, yes, but it's not as simple as it sounds. That's a situation that we're going to have to talk about to kind of guide you through. There's a lot of rules that you have to follow in order to make that work.
Okay.
But let me tell y'all the best combination. When you combine the trust in an IUL or whole life, I'm talking about, it's like double protection, right? Because a life insurance is already creditor protected. Then when you get the irrevocable trust, now it's creditor protected on that side. So a lot of people have been able to shelter money and essentially, make the owner of the insurance policy the trust, the beneficiary the trust. Put yourself into a situation that you don't own anything. It's a powerful concept, you all. In a lot of ways, you can save tax because a lot of people don't know that even though life insurance death benefits are tax free or income tax free, they're not necessarily estate tax free. So if you make over a certain amount of money, they could actually tax your life insurance policies. The only way to avoid that tax is inside of an irrevocable trust. It's the only way. So definitely you want to combine that for sure. And
Yeah.
somebody said, what's the difference between a whole life and an IUL? Okay. So the whole life is sort of like a fixed account. So let's say it's 5%. That means you're getting 5% each and every year, right? The upside is you can borrow from it a lot quicker and you're getting a fixed rate, so you know what you're getting. The downside is that you do limit your growth a bit because you typically can make a lot more money in an IUL because they have higher what's called caps. And what a cap is in an IUL, let's say your cap is 10%. That means if the market makes 5%, you can make 5%. If the S&P makes 10%, you can make 10%. But if it makes 15, the most you can make is 10. And if it goes down, you can't lose. So over time, you're going to earn more than the fixed account. And yes, you can borrow against that. But what it's really used for too is for really good tax-free long-term income over time as well. So I do both. I do my IUL for my long term, and I do my whole life to borrow against it quicker. So just remember, for you, it could be either or, but for some of you, it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and. Let's see. Combine the trust with the life insurance, IUL, Index Universal Life. Let's see. All right, you all. Hopefully these that helps. So let's turn it back over to the star of the show, Christina,
All
to
right.
finalize her conversation about the trust. Put some fireballs in the comments for Christina. Didn't she do a great job? Like, you're getting this information for free. People charge thousands of dollars just for the little bit of information that she gave in the last hour, hour and a half. It's been amazing. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you so much for educating us on internet banking. We appreciate it. So I'm going to open up the floor for any questions that you guys might have on trust. So either come off mute, raise your hand, whatever it is that you need to do. We have a couple more minutes left before we're shutting down this webinar. So if you have any final questions on trust, let me know.
Hi, Christina. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is it Shaya?
Oh, Kaya.
Hiya. Beautiful name.
Thank you. I have a question. So in the beginning, when you were showing the slides, I kind of missed the different. You were saying the strategies, but it was another slide that was showing. What are those three different kinds of trust again? Like the way that you want to.
Okay. So yeah, so as far as structure, I recommend that you have a business trust, a private family trust, and a nonprofit tax exempt trust, which
No,
is
not that one. It was a different one when you were describing like the different kinds of trust. It was like one was written, one was like
oh, okay.
those.
So
Yeah.
okay, so with the categories, right?
Yes, the category.
Yeah, the categories. So every single trust is either going to fall under an express or an implied, right? So if you have a written trust, then you have an express trust, okay? It's going to be either statutory or non-statutory. So if you don't have any state statutes, then it's non-statutory. It's either simple or complex. So if it's long, it has a bunch of articles and sections and provisions, then it's complex. And it's either going to be irrevocable or revocable. So if it's, if it's irrevocable, then that's what it is. If it's revocable, then that's what it is. So whatever the verbiage says inside of the trust. So the one that I recommend is that you have an express trust that is a discretionary, that is complex in nature, and non-statutory and irrevocable.
Okay. Now, with that being said, would you say, like, can you change it? Like, is it possible that that you could just start off with, something simple just to get the trust started? Or would you just recommend, somebody, like just save up until you're able to, just go on ahead and do it yourself, so that way you can create one that's more complex, or just get one started for now? What would you say?
I would say, I would say just like start as soon as possible. So you want to make sure that you have the right kind of trust. So I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. Like I personally wouldn't get like a living trust, or anything like that. So um the you also don't want to waste your time too and just get a trust that you're not intending on operating, or that's not going to really protect your assets. So I would tell you wait until you're able to get the bulletproof trust for you to actually be able to, be more efficient with your time and stuff, and actually
Okay.
protect your assets. You don't want to put it into an entity and then, and then it's not fully protected.
Okay. Now with the I know it's the do it yourself, but in that, is there steps in that one where it shows you how to pretty much break down a more complex trust? Or
Yeah, so we provide you with the actual trust. So the trust that I'm recommending, the program comes with 3 trusts. So in the do-it-yourself, you get all 3 trusts. So,
okay, and
so
we
did
just
you?
follow the format.
Yep. So I break down every single paragraph inside the trust. So you download it, you customize it, you name it what you want, you appoint your different positions, you put all the rules and regulations that you want to customize in there. So I show you how to do everything in the course.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? Any other questions? All right, any comments? Anybody want to come on camera and say,
It was
Yeah.
I had a question.
Oh,
all right, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Who was that?
yeah, me
What is the
too.
what is the minimum amount of money that you would suggest starting a trust with?
Oh, okay. So
Or
I mean,
minimum or maximum?
oh, okay. 100. So when we document it, we document $1, right? So it has to be something with intrinsic value. But if you go to the bank, some of these banks, it depends on what bank you go to. They have minimums too. So like I opened up my trust account with Truist, and their minimum is $100. If you go to Charles Schwab, their minimum is $3,000. So it depends on the financial institution that you choose.
What's the best financial institute for a trust?
So, I mean, it depends on you. So some financial institutions are not going to ask you for your trust, and some are. So if you go with the bigger banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're going to ask you to bring in your entire trust. If you go with national banks, smaller banks, credit unions, they're not. So I bank with Truist. They do not ask you. I have my brokerage accounts, cash management accounts with Fidelity. They do not ask you for your trust. So you want to go with institutions that are not going to violate your privacy.
Mm. Okay, I have a question. If you have a mortgage, are you still able to put the ownership under the trust?
Yeah,
Or
you can deed over your house to the trust from your personal name, even though you have a mortgage. Your mortgage is going to stay intact. It's totally legal, and nothing's going to happen with your mortgage. So it's going to remain in your personal name on your personal credit. And now the trust is going to pay the mortgage premium.
okay. And Marvin had mentioned if you do it the right way, you're able to borrow from it within like 30 days. What is considered the right way? How do you how do you determine what the right way is to make sure that you're able to do that and not having to wait? Because I always heard that it was upward 10 years of you paying into your insurance before you can even take the benefit of borrowing from it.
No. I have 5 policies, and I was able to borrow by the second month. So Marvin, do you want to tell her the right way? As far as like the structure?
Wow.
So he might have stepped away, but it it has to be properly structured. So the structure has to be for, I think it's that you accumulate the highest amount of cash value and you have the lowest amount of death benefit. So that's the way that it needs to be structured in order for you to be able to borrow from your cash value as soon as possible. And then another thing is that you have a surrender charge, okay? So you have to pay into the surrender charge before you are eligible to borrow. The surrender charge, the way that I look at it, is as a security deposit because they give it back to you. So when you first start your policy, let's just say that your surrender charge is $2,000. So that means that when you're paying your premium, a portion of it is going to go to your surrender charge. And then it's just going to sit there as a security deposit. And if you don't cancel your policy within the first like 12 months, then they release that 2,000 back into your cash value. But in order for you to be able to borrow initially from your cash value, that surrender charge needs to be fulfilled. So you need to have already paid that surrender charge in full, and then whatever is in your cash value you can borrow from. So let's just say that, you know, right now you just started your policy today. Your cash value, I mean, your surrender charge is 2,000. So let's just say you deposited 5,000 today, then you'll be eligible to borrow, you know, today or tomorrow, whenever your payment clears, 3,000 of that 5,000. So that's what that looks like. And that's what I meant by because I know India was asking this question about cushion, right? So you need to have that cushion in there in order to be able to borrow out all of what you need, okay?
Right. Because that was gonna be the next thing, because you were explaining about
Your paycheck.
the paycheck, like when you put your paycheck, instead of you paying yourself last, take that paycheck and put it into, you were saying put it into the insurance that would be
Yes.
under the trust, not into just the trust without having the insurance, right?
Correct. Yo, you put it
Okay.
straight into your policy and now your cash value goes up by, you know, $4,000 or $5,000. You're making that, you know, that whatever the market is doing, right? So I talked to my insurance policy, my insurance carrier yesterday, and I asked them what I made for the last quarter, and they told me 9.2.
Got
So
it.
whatever it is that the market is doing at that time, okay?
Okay.
So that's
Yeah,
what I
you
mean.
can
So
start
you
that
want,
immediately.
yeah, as long as you have that cushion. That cushion is that your surrender charge is fulfilled and that you have a little bit of money in cash value so that you can borrow, you know, if you're putting in 5,000, you can take out the 5,000 because you need the 5,000 to pay your bills.
All right, now we know what to do with our taxes.
There, that part. Okay, girl. Right. She woke. All right. Do I have any other questions? Let me see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just had a comment. So I just want to hop on and say I want to thank you both so much for dropping all these jewels. I literally paid someone over $1,000 to get maybe like 1/20th of what you gave in the first 10 minutes. So the information's invaluable, and I thank you guys so much for putting out these kind of jewels and helping everyone elevate.
Thank you so much, Earl. I really
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here in this space, for adding value. I appreciate you for, you know, rocking with us for the last two hours here. So the only thing I have to say is just take action on the information because you could be building generational wealth the right way. You could be protecting your assets, preserving your wealth. You could be raising your kids to be trustees, and you could be breaking generational curses. So the whole goal is just to change the trajectory of your life and your kids' life and your kids' life. And so that's why we do what we do. So let's see here.
I have a question.
All
I
right.
just want to know who do you use as your insurance?
Oh, you have to go through Marvin. He's the one
Okay.
who structures it. So Marvin has a financial firm, so you can get all your financial products from him. He is a financial advisor. So anything and everything that you need in order to get investments for your trust is you can get it through him and his company. So you want to use the link that's in the chat insurancetrustcall.com. Okay. You're going to be able to book a call with one of his agents, and they'll be educating you on what it is that you need in order to take the next steps to get your insurance policy. Okay. And they're going to do it the right way. So one, they're going to structure it the right way. Two, they reduce their commission so that you can actually accumulate cash value. So that's why he's saying structure, structure, structure is so important, because like India and someone else said, you have to understand that insurance agents, they gotta eat, right? They got to put food on the table. And so they're worried about commission, right? And so that's your traditional insurance agents, not agents that are specializing in infinite banking, right? So they're not built the same. So with the insurance agents, they want to get as much commission as possible. And that's why you're not able to build cash value, because the insurance carriers are actually paying out, nice commissions to the agents, right? So if you're doing infinite banking, then they actually reduce their commission so that you can build cash value and be able to borrow from it in 30 to 60 days. So that's what happened with me. I have 5 policies, you guys. Why? Because I have 5 people inside of my trust. I have 2 co-trustees and I have 3 beneficiaries. 5 policies that are owned by the trust. The trust is the payer, the trust is the beneficiary, okay? And so by the 2nd month, I was able to borrow out of the policies. So you want to make sure that you're setting it up the right way, okay? So go to insurancetrustcall.com. And the recordings are on YouTube, so you can look us up, 7 Ways to Wealth, that's the channel. There's a bunch of information on trust, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. And then you can watch the recording. So we're actually live on YouTube right now. So if you came in the middle of the call, go ahead and watch the beginning of it. Let me know if you have any questions. You could send me an email, you could DM me on Instagram, whatever it is, I'll be able to answer your question. So Elise says she's subscribing right now. Thank you, Miss Elise. I appreciate you. So any other final questions, comments, or concerns before we close out this room? I'm so glad that you guys was here tonight. You know, it's a Wednesday night. We learning about wealth and we are ready to take action in 2024. It's only January, you guys. So it's only up from here, seriously. And like this year,
One last question.
go for it, my dear.
All right, so hypothetically speaking, I don't know, but everybody knows about the talk, hypothetically speaking, about supposedly like the system crashing or whatever, right? Now, with that being said, like if we have our money like in trust and stuff like that, and the dollar value goes down, and where we have our IULs and stuff, we have our trust set up. How do we set things up so that way it goes into like a crypt, you know what I mean? So that way it's still protected, because if the dollar collapses supposedly and we have, money saved up there, how would that, you understand what I'm asking? Am I making sense?
Yeah, sort of, kind of. So I can't predict the future, so I don't know what's going to happen with the currency. Okay, so that's the first thing I can say. The second thing is that you want whatever cash that you do have, you want to make sure that it's in the right spot. So is it safe in the banks? No, let's just be honest, right? The FDIC is only 250,000, but if you have it in other accounts, so majority of my money is inside of my policies. They're liquid. So the minute that I ask for the money, I'm getting a direct deposit. Okay. So with our fractional reserve system, the banks are not required to keep the amount of cash that they actually need. Okay. So if they need $1 million, they probably only got $10. Okay.
Right.
So with the insurance policies, the insurance carriers, they have way stricter amounts because people are dropping like flies every single day and they need to be able to pay out those premiums. So they actually have more money in reserves. So that's why you want to have your money more in a safer spot, right? Another thing is I have what you call a cash management account. So that is with a brokerage. The brokerage is Fidelity, and it's just like a checking account. account where you have a debit card, but it's not a checking account. It actually has more, it's more insured than a regular bank account or checking account. So the insurance, I think, is anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million, right? So you have more insurance on your cash with a cash management account or with you putting it inside of a policy versus you leaving it in the bank, okay?
That makes so much sense because if it's in a policy, hypothetically speaking, if the dollar collapses, but it's liquid, so no matter what, if you need it, it can go into whatever currency you need it in. Oh man.
High
Yeah.
five. High five.
Yes, like I'm like, oh man, that's what's up.
That's that aha moment right there.
I'm already we in this group chat all together in here with you. I put them on to come to this video. Man, when we get our taxes, girl, we coming.
Let's go. Yeah, India said this is exciting. I'm excited for you guys. Okay, any last comments of like the nuggets or the gems that you guys received from tonight's call?
This is really amazing because I was discouraged for so long, like, dang, why didn't we learn this? You know, I'm in my 30s. Why couldn't I have learned this years ago? Why aren't they teaching us this in school? Well, we know why, but why couldn't we have learned this? Why couldn't we
Yeah,
have
we
learned
know
this
why.
so long ago so we can set ourselves up? And our community desperately needs this. Like, it's so important. This is incredible. Like, I'm so excited to get started because it doesn't feel like, okay, I gotta wait another 10, 15 years before I can, get my kids set up. So thank you so very much.
You're so welcome, and that's so true. Like they do not teach us this information in school, and we know why, and that's okay. It's up to us, right? We got to be accountable for our own selves. It's up to us for us to retrieve the information and to take action on the information. Because a lot of us, we hold on to the information and we got analysis paralysis and don't do anything with it. So taking action is that missing link, okay? So I'm so excited that you guys was here tonight. So stay in contact with me. And then I have the links in the chat, you guys. So don't forget, you guys are getting a discount.
Got a question.
Yeah, Chris. For 20% for the next 24 hours. So hey, Chris, what's up?
How much times can I pay myself first?
Oh, I mean, so there's no limitation. If you want to do it every single day, you can.
So every week I get paid, I could just throw money in the account and it won't be a problem.
No, it won't be a problem. So there is something called a MEC limit. It's a modified endowment, I think it's contract. And so your insurance company will let you know if you're hitting that MEC limit. So when you structure your policy, that's why Marvin said it's so important for your policy to be properly structured, because you need to know how much money you really want to be flowing in and out, okay? I actually got my MEC limits yesterday. Hold on, let me see if I have it here. I'll show you. I told you I had talked to my insurance company yesterday, right? So here I have wrote down my MEC limits. So for example, for my kids, right? They're minors, they're little, they're 4 or 5 years old. So their MEC limit is I can only put 16,000 a year into their policies, right? But my policy, I can flow in 289,000 a year. So you have to structure it the right way. But your insurance company is going to let you know when you are going to hit the MEC. You do not want to go over it because then your policy becomes taxable. That defeats the entire purpose. So if you are at the MEC, you won't be able to flow in as much as you want to. So you need to know once you're structuring it, how much you want to put in and put inside of the policy, okay? But there's really no limitation as long as you structure it the right way. So I've never hit my MEC. Your MEC is only for the first 7 years of your policy. After that, it's unlimited. So after that 7th year, so on that 8th year, you could flow in $1 million a day if you wanted to, and it's tax-free for the rest of the life of the account.
I ain't got nothing else to say.
I'm speechless.
Okay, wait. I got one more thing.
I think I've been talking too long, y'all. No.
Is it like pulling teeth to get your policy set up that way where you have the lowest death benefits and higher? Like, do they work with you with that? Because you know how sometimes when it's like kind of going
Not
to
if
a
you
car
use
dealership.
Marvin.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. She said it. She's like, not if you use Marvin. No, yeah, you have to go to a company that has experience. It's not like pulling teeth. It's easy. It's all about one, being properly educated, two, having a good agent who's actually going to steer you in the right direction and make sure that it is structured the way you need it to be, right? You're not going to walk up to an agent and say, hey, well, I need to be structured to where I'm making the most amount of cash value and the lowest death benefit. You don't know that information. So that's why you need to go to, the right people, because they already know that information. And everything goes inside of your application, right? And the thing that I like about Marvin and his team is that they they are familiar with trust, right? They have trust. And so they already do your application where the trust is the applicant. So you are not the applicant, right? Chris, Alyssa, everyone on this call, you are not the person applying for the policy. Your trust is applying for the policy,
So start the
right?
trust first
And
and then
you
apply
are
for the policy.
yeah, but you could do it simultaneously because, like, for example, you could have your trust up and running by tomorrow, right? And it's, as long as you know, like, the name of the trust and all this stuff, because your policy is going to take, the application process is 3 to 6 weeks, right? There's a medical exam that's associated with it and everything. So that's why you want to do it simultaneously. So you want to be setting up your trust and putting in that application, since there's a little bit of a waiting period, okay? But like I said, you want someone or an experienced agent who's able to do that, who's able to already know, hey, this is a trustee. I need to put in this insurance application under the name of the trust, right? Because it's going to be owned by the trust, versus you doing the application under yourself and then having to transfer the ownership later. You don't want to take 2 and 3 steps when you can just do everything simultaneously. Yeah. Sounds good.
Sounds very good.
All right, you guys have a good night. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'm always live on YouTube and I'm always dropping gems, and I got a lot of stuff that I'm planning as far as like new content and everything like that. And then also sometimes I do giveaways. So I just did a Christmas giveaway where I gave away the Done With You program for my subscribers on YouTube. So I'm going to be running another one soon. So definitely subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys. So just, let me know if you have any questions, and if not, then I'll see you in the program. So if you enrolled in the Done With You, then the workshop is going to be February 19th to the 23rd. That's the next workshop, okay? And like I said, we're going Monday through Friday, 11 in the morning to 1 p.m. And you have lifetime access to all of the workshops, right? So you can jump into the workshop in March, April, May, next year, whenever you want. And you have the recordings for all of the previous workshops. So everything is lifetime access, because once you start operating as a trustee, you're going to know and understand, hey, I need multiple trusts. Like me, I actually just set up another trust last week, right? And it's for a podcast. So me and my sibling, we're going to set up we're going to start a podcast. And so we actually set up a business trust and named the business trust the podcast. Okay. So you guys want to start operating like that. But anyways, you guys have a good night. And
Thank you.
I look forward to welcoming you guys into the